And it was me, right?
Hi, we're back.
We're back. After this little brief intermission, shall we continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, we were on Casey, human. Phew, what a day that was. I went over to Bittersweet Farm with Red Bessie around 4:30 in the morning. It was dark and cold, and I was in no mood to be dealing with any crazy animals, don't you know. Glenn Parker was already out there in the open area beside the cowshed with two of them sneaky creatures and a sheepdog. Glenn isn't talking to me much on account of the whole Audrey thing, but them two cows were calm and cooperative, not dancing or anything, and that's all that mattered to me. We loaded them up the ramp onto Red Bessie. Glenn gets into the passenger seat, and we head off.
Audrey, cow. It was much easier using the abandoned road. I still had to be careful because the furrows were uneven and rocky, requiring me to be sure of each step before pressing down. But as dawn approached, the dark lifted slowly until I could safely mark the route. Of course, no matter how fast I went, I was never fast enough for my escorts, who grumbled out loud almost continuously, only stopping to shush me, who wasn't saying a peep. We were very close to reaching the main two-legger road when suddenly both my escorts stopped talking, stood up on their hind legs, and shushed me again with more urgency. They had heard something, and a moment later, I heard it too.
Oliver Raccoon. So, have you had yourself a little guess yet? Have you figured out what happened to me and dear Stan and
The
package who insisted we take the easier route? I'll give you a little hint. The second rule of smuggling is that if anything, even something a whisker's breadth away from impossible, has the possibility of happening, then more than likely it will happen. Keeping this in mind, what do you think we could possibly have come across while going on our merry little way along an all but forgotten, nothing to have a worry about, abandoned two-legger road?
Stan, raccoon. We saw a truck. We did!
Oliver Raccoon took the words right out of my mouth.
Casey, human. I had my map out because I was instructed by the wildlife enforcement officer to take the cows to some long-forgotten field somewhere in the middle of the forest, and the only way to get there was by an unmarked service road. 45 minutes of driving, and we're getting close. It's lighter outside, but still not daylight, so we nearly missed the turn. But Glenn thinks he sees it. He points and shouts. I take a sharp right and jump in June bugs. I plow Red Bessie along the bumpiest road imaginable. Barely a half a second in, and my bouncing headlights catch two raccoons frantically pushing what looks like a giant black boulder off to the side. Now, other people might find that weird, but after what I've seen, nothing really surprises me anymore.
Oliver Raccoon. Righty right, we hear a noise and it doesn't sound too friendly. Me and Stan, professional smugglers that we are, break into evasive maneuvers. I turn to the package and shout, "Duck!" Sadly, my unfortunate choice of words confuses both the package and Stan, who immediately begins to look for waterfowl in question. I try again, yelling, "Hide!" and pushing the package off to the edge, because with only a second to spare, a hideously large and loud vehicle was coming barreling down the never-ever-used road and straight at us, promising extensive damage to our persons upon impact. I shout out for a third time, returning to the very fitting verb, "Duck!" Yet again. This time my partner Stan takes my point and, following my example, throws himself into the ground, allowing the truck to pass over our terrified and wobbly but still in one piece bodies.
Audrey, cow. I knew the sound of that truck as soon as it came to earshot. You don't quickly forget that contraption meant to take you to your demise. After it rocked and bounced past us, snorting and belching like some angry bull, I lifted my head and to my horror saw Madge and Agnes hanging on for dear life in the back. It was both alarming and confusing. Why were they in the Abbott's Ward truck? They were milk cows, and there was no reason to take them, unless it was some sort of punishment, to teach the other animals a lesson, perhaps, because of me. Were they being punished because I escaped? But why take them to the meadow? Is that what they did with the milk cows? Did their lives end there instead of at Abbott's Ward? None of it made any sense, but my eyes met Madge's, and they looked so scared. I took a step back onto the road, and she started to bellow. They drove off toward the meadow, and soon she was too far away from me to hear what she was saying. But it couldn't have been good. I was frantic. Meanwhile, my escorts insisted we continue across the road up ahead and carry on to the other side of the forest. But what about Madge and Agnes? I couldn't just abandon my friends in their time of need, especially if their trouble was my fault.
Madge Cow. I saw her. It was Audrey. I was sure of it. I recognized her dear face and soft eyes, but her hide was so blackened and cracked, I thought perhaps she was ill. When she got up and moved toward the truck. Then she got up and moved toward the truck, so I bellowed a warning. As she receded behind us, I yelled, "Stay away, Audrey! It's a trap! Stay away! Far away!" In moments, we were out of view. I didn't know if she had heard me, but I wished so deeply that she had.
Oliver Raccoon. Righty right then. The two-legger vehicle was out of sight, out of mind. I checked my limbs, all accounted for, and Stan's self-appraisal reached the same conclusion. Up on our feet, we're breathing fine, life is good, time to get back to work. Our destination is but a few dozen steps away. We need only deliver the package across the smooth road yonder. Point her in the right direction, and our contractual obligations with dear and old friend Boris, a.k.a. the skunk, is a foregone conclusion. So take a small stab of speculation at what happened next. How do you think the package rewarded all of our hard labor? Care to have a go?
Stan Raccoon. She done run back to the meadow, she did.
Oliver Raccoon. It's enough to make a grown raccoon cry.
Audrey Cow. I galloped back toward the meadow, pushing and exerting every muscle in my body, as I imagine Roy might have done in his younger days. I was reckless in my pursuit of that truck, crossing the same demanding terrain I had cautiously tread earlier, but now at quadruple the speed. I didn't care. I just knew I had to get there. I wasn't even sure what I would do when I did.
Claudette Cougar waited behind her barn cave since sunrise, came ready to hunt and kill. Heard two-leggers walking nearby in the forest. Didn't care. Only cared about stupid, vicious Charlet. So quiet in her barn cave. No fear smell this time. Not any smell. Began to wonder if Charlet was there, but I knew she was. She was always there. Stupid, vicious creature. Heard two-legger vehicle coming into the meadow. Didn't care. Not interested in two-leggers. Only interested in Charlet. Only interested in ripping her to shreds and teaching her a lesson.
Torchy human. Why, sure, I could tell you what happened next, but for the more vivid account of the blow-by-blow action, I suggest you read my story in the next day's paper.
From the newspaper, Audrey's quest for freedom ends in mayhem, by Torchy Muro, special to the Daily Planet. This infamous day began well before daylight. Dear readers, while the stars still twinkled in the bruised purple sky, yours truly met up once again with tall, rugged Officer Humphrey. We stood along a lonely stretch of highway bordering the vast forest that one brave and wily cow named Audrey had called sanctuary for over a week. Steam curled up from the cups of coffee that Officer Humphrey and I drank in silence, a solemn moment before what was expected to be the final chapter in our heroine's story. With his square jaw firmly set, Officer Humphrey slung the rifle over his broad shoulder, flicked on his trusty flashlight, and led this reporter through a tangle of trees and rough terrain toward a concealed location. As we entered, the noisy woods went eerily still. I felt as if all eyes were upon us, bird and animal alike, watching our furtive moments and waiting for events to play out. Clean-shaven Officer Humphrey and I huddled close together in our small, secreted roost. We looked out onto an open meadow that, if things went according to plan, would serve as the stage for this drama. Surely, as night turns to day, the dawn broke and night turned to day. At 5:23, as per schedule, we heard the loud huff and puff of Red Bessie, the truck that many of you readers will remember as the one assigned to deliver our heroine to her death. On this cool, early summer morning, it was being driven by none other than Mr. Cafey Crumfelt, the same hapless half-wit who lay hiding beneath Red Bessie, cowardly avoiding the overtures of a single crow, while Audrey made her escape. But this time, the truck was making a different delivery, bringing 2 milk cows from Bittersweet Farm to serve as lures to reel Audrey in. It lurched to a stop in the middle of the meadow. Crumpfelt, along with Glenn Parker, the owner of the farm where Audrey grew up, left the truck and began unloading the cows. Whereas earlier the cows were bellowing from what one might only imagine was fear, now they stood silent. Meanwhile, beside me, handsome Officer Humphrey furrowed his thick eyebrows in concentration. Something was afoot. Cool as a cucumber, he lifted his rifle and planted it firmly in the crook of his shoulder. Then I heard what he heard. Thump, 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 thump. As quick as my own excited heartbeat, but growing louder and louder. Something was coming, and coming fast. It was Audrey. She rushed toward her fellow cows with the determination of a racehorse, dried mud breaking off her like the shell from a newborn bird. She came with a fury, like a bullet, like a steam engine. Nothing was going to stop her. Certainly not Casey Crumpfelt, whose frantically waving arms were the last things I saw before he was bowled over. To my right, I heard the faint click of the cocked hammer. Officer Humphrey was taking aim. His arm was steady. His breath was measured. Dear readers, I heard the shot.
No.
It echoed through the trees, sending birds scattering in all directions. But, dear readers, I also saw, seemingly from out of nowhere, the powerful, muscular body of a cougar leap into the air, claws out and sharp teeth exposed, and land on our poor heroine's back, pulling her down hard into the long, wild grass. I feared, dear readers, that Audrey was no more. That's where it ends?
That's where it ends.
We have to stop there?
We have to stop.
I want to keep reading.
Me too. We can't.